log into the contrast console here. As soon as you log in, you see a dashboard which shows you a grade for your applications, along with the vulnerabilities as well as attacks on your applications. It also gives you a list of all the high-risk applications right here. So if you were to look at the whole life cycle of an application, the first step is when an application is brought to life and is deployed. So within Contrast, you can now add an application into the Contrast console and instrument this with the Contrast agent, which then has sensors into the application, which can look at the data flowing through and then figure out if there are vulnerabilities and then report them back to the Contrast console. So once the application has been added to Contrast, it shows up right here on the Contrast team server console. There's a grade here as well as the list of or the number of vulnerabilities which this application has. Drilling down into one of these applications, we see that it's actually deployed across 3 environments: development, QA, as well as production. On development and QA, assess is turned on, which is why we see vulnerabilities here. And then on production, we have protect turned on, so it shows a number of attacks, both exploited as well as blocked on this specific application. Contrast shows more detail than any pen test or any other product in the market. And the results, as you'll see very soon, are extremely simplified and very easy to make sense of by anybody. So clicking on vulnerabilities here brings us a list of all the different vulnerabilities which exist in this application. I can go in and click on one of these, say a SQL injection, and we'll see that Contrast actually pieces together the entire request to show you how exactly this data flows through from the input all the way to the SQL. We also give details on how to fix this and also provide a quick HTTP overview, request overview, so that this request can then be replayed when you need to take a look at this specific vulnerability and the potential attack that could occur as a result of this. Since Contrast instruments the applications with sensors and looks at this data flow in real time, the number of false positives are extremely minimal and the results are highly accurate with Contrast. Now that we've seen the vulnerabilities, the other thing which Contrast can show is also the libraries which exist inside the application. This could be third-party libraries as well as custom libraries which are a part of any application. Again, these are graded, and customers and enterprises can also set policies on the versions of libraries which you need to use or should not be using as a developer in your organization. Finally, on Contrast Assess, there's also the live view where since Contrast is looking at the data flow of inside the application, it can actually figure out the architecture of the application in real time and then show it to AppSec admins on the console here to make use of. So that's a quick view of Contrast Assess. Let's take a look at Contrast Protect now. Contrast Protect allows you to look at attacks taking place on your applications, but also Contrast can actually protect your applications in real time against vulnerabilities and attacks which actually are taking place on this application. So in this case, this is the attack monitor page, which lists out all the different attacks across different applications on Team Server. I could pick a single attacker, for example, based on IP address, or I could filter down to a specific type of attack, say a SQL injection in this case, which then brings up all the different attacks which were SQL injections on my applications. Let's go into the policies now to see how this can actually be set in Contrast. On the policy management screen, you can see that for assessment, you could enable or disable specific rules for tracking on Contrast. So say, for example, your enterprise has a different application or a different system by which command injections are taken care of, then you can ensure that Contrast does not flag those as positives on Contrast console. Similarly, we also have security controls, which ensure that we can look at specific lines of code where you have a security already in place for specific vulnerabilities and then mark them as such. On the protection side, uh, across development, QA, and production, you can set specific rules for actions to be taken when there are specific attacks on your environment. Similarly, when there's a new CVE which comes out as defined by MITRE, for example, or any other vulnerability which you find in your own code, you could quickly go in and either set a virtual patch or a CVE shield to protect your applications against those attacks and vulnerabilities in real time. Similarly, log enhancers provide you a very simple way by which you could enhance the logging of your application without the need for a development request from the application security team. So that was a quick overview of contrast security across both contrast assess and contrast protect. The unified platform can detect vulnerabilities and protect against attacks in real time with extremely high accuracy, making applications highly secure. Welcome to the era of self-protecting software.